Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're going straight to the bottom of the iceberg. These are 20 things you didn't know about the Metal Gear series. Development secrets, content history, unused storylines. Let's see what was hiding in the shadows of Metal Gear. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Big Boss believes in Santa Claus, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker.
Snake, how much do you know about the U.S. Homeland Air Defense Network?
I don't know much about what goes on up in the sky.
This entry in the series admittedly gets a little wackier than the previous games. It doesn't hold nearly the emotional stakes of MGS4, but it's still canon, so if Big Boss believes in Santa Claus here, he believes in him everywhere. After Huey laughs off Big Boss's comment about NORAD tracking Santa, Big Boss continues to insist that Old Saint Nick is indeed real and that he used to bring him presents. It is oddly sweet from a man whose eyeball was cut out by Russian terrorists.
What I do know is that NORAD tracks Santa Claus on its radar.
Nice one. I didn't know you were a comedian too.
Huh? No, I'm serious. It's true, NORAD tracks his... Listen to me. Every December they set up a hotline and...
Mark II was planned for MGS1, Metal Gear Solid.
It's me, Snake. Snake, it's me.
Huh? Otacon.
The Metal Gear Mark II was a funny little addition to MGS4. That contextualized Otacon always being by your side and giving you a fun little gadget to play with if you don't want to just run and gun. Interestingly, Snake was originally intended to use the Mark II throughout Shadow Moses, and it even appeared in his inventory during the Metal Gear Solid's E3 1997 demo. Wow. Think back then. Considering the original game's top-down layout, the Mark II might have been even more valuable than it was in MGS4, and by the time we got to MGS4, it would have been like the Mark 37.
But this gear's not a weapon. It's a remote mobile terminal designed to provide you with operational support.
Ocelot is the boss's son, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Ah, you're here at last. Looks like the boss's info was right.
Revolver Ocelot is undeniably the most iconic character in the whole series, appearing in almost all of the mainline entries. He takes center stage in Metal Gear Solid 4, where he directly opposes the will of the boss, a heartbreak that deepens with the revelation that Ocelot is in fact the boss's son. In MGS3, the boss briefly mentions giving birth during battle, and Eva tells Snake about Ocelot, stating, "All I heard was that his mother was supposedly shot in the gut during battle, and that he was born right there." It's subtle, but it's still canon.
Or should I say, Snake, you're a wonderful man.
Chico was meant to come back, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
Chico.
First introduced in Peace Walker and swiftly written out in Ground Zeroes, Chico never quite received the character development that seemed intended for him. Along with Paz, he became the emotional core of Ground Zeroes and then all but vanished from the main game. That is, unless you dig into the art of Metal Gear Solid 5. The art book features a concept page showing what Chico might have looked like had he survived, wearing a long red coat and carrying various melee weapons. It's so cool that it feels like a very missed opportunity. David Hayter was almost replaced in MGS3, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Major, I've spotted 2 enemy soldiers.
They're probably KGB troops sent to guard Sokolov.
AK-47s and grenades.
The decision to replace David Hayter with Kiefer Sutherland in Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zero sparked pretty major controversy. Hayter's seemingly abrupt departure caught many off guard, but the truth is, Kojima had been considering a change as far back as Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and the salt between the two of them has become more and more a topic of public conversation, especially with Hayter. Back in MGS3, Kojima had hoped Kurt Russell would voice Big Boss, and reportedly had a Konami producer approach him with the offer. I love Kojima, but it does seem like he treats Hayter like garbage, which makes me sad.
I have a message from him.
What is it?
He said to tell you sorry for being so late.
MGS4 Barber, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. Character customization is a staple of modern gaming, and originally players were going to have the option to customize Snake's facial hair in MGS4 using a razor found in-game. Kojima revealed that he had wanted to implement facial hair growth as early as Metal Gear Solid 2, but the PlayStation 2's hardware limitations held the idea back. With the PlayStation 3, however, the technology was finally up to par, and Kojima even showed 4 potential facial hair styles for Old Snake, including a full beard that closely resembles an older Big Boss. At least we got growing hair by the time Red Dead 2 rolled around. MGS2 almost didn't happen. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
The terrorists call themselves Sons of Liberty.
Sons of Liberty?
The name of their leader is Solid Snake.
Kojima's original concept for a Metal Gear Solid sequel was surprisingly straightforward. Snake would travel to the Middle East to destroy another Metal Gear. Kojima eventually scrapped the idea because war in the Middle East became a reality and felt a bit close to home. His next draft was closer to the game that we got. None of the events of the Big Shell would have actually happened. Raiden's entire mission in the plant chapter was envisioned as a fully fabricated simulation. MGS2 already challenges the player's perception of reality, but this early version would have discarded all ambiguity in favor of the twist being reality, not just a fan theory.
I was part of the Army's Force 21 trials.
Force 21, that's about tactical IT deployment, right? Any field experience?
No, not really.
So this is your first.
Lost members of Dead Cell, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
You're right on time, I see. I like a punctual man.
Is he Dead Cell?
I am Fat Man. I am the greatest that humanity has to offer, and
Almost all Metal Gear games have a collection of supernatural freaks, as Ocelot so kindly calls them, to give our protagonists a few bosses to face leading up to the endgame boss. MGS1 had Foxhound, MGS3 had the Cobra unit, and MGS2 had Dead Cell. However, 2 additional members of Dead Cell were originally planned, but ultimately cut from MGS2. One was Chinaman, a martial arts themed character who had a dragon tattoo that could come to life. And the other was Old Boy, an elderly figure who was meant to be a mentor to Big Boss. Crazy that Kojima nearly got away with a character called Chinaman.
The old man is dead. The world is a different place now.
Join your unions, Metal Gear Solid.
I have 2 mission objectives. First, you're to rescue DARPA Chief Donald Anderson.
In the late 90s, voice acting in games was still relatively new, and many actors were unsure about how to fit within union guidelines with this work. At the time, the Screen Actors Guild hadn't established clear rules for video game work, leading many actors to use pseudonyms to avoid potential conflicts. This was the case for much of the Metal Gear Solid cast, who were credited under aliases. Apart from David Hayter, Doug Stone, and Scott Dolph, most of the cast were not who they said they were, with Hayter even using a pseudonym for the tech demo.
Be through here. I know it. I'm going to swat down a couple of bothersome flies.
Sniper Wolf concept art, Metal Gear Solid.
It's hard to miss when you're this close. Toss your weapon over here. Slowly.
Oh my word. I gotta lie down. The concept art books of Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 showcase stunning concept art and illustrations, primarily by Yoji Shinkawa, but also include surprisingly explicit images of Sniper Wolf. I'm going to check the analytics of this video to see just how many people paused here to go and Google this. Depicted wearing nothing but an open jacket and a single boot, the image was pretty full on considering the tone of the rest of the game, but not surprising considering Yoji and Kojima were mates.
Please. Just finish me quick.
We figured out the twist, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Spoiler alert, Venom Snake from MGS5 is not Big Boss, and some players were able to unravel Venom Snake's true identity by paying attention to Kojima's music choices in trailers and noticing the character's subtle new traits. With most other developers, Snake's new ponytail and vaping habit might have just been seen as a shift in direction for the character, but with Kojima, every detail carries weight. While his choice of smoke might not have been enough to clue in most players, Kojima's musical selection definitely played a significant role, picking songs about fractured identities, clearly on purpose.
Here. That's your name as of today.
MGS3 was meant to be a PS3 title, MGS3 Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid 3 pushed the limits of the PS2's hardware, often feeling like a new generation experience within that gen. And this makes sense, as Konami initially intended for Snake Eater to be a flagship title for the PlayStation 3. Due to frequent delays, the PS3's release was pushed back and back and back for years. Faced with the prospect of more waiting, the team shifted development back to the PlayStation 2. In hindsight, this was likely a blessing, especially considering how notoriously difficult the PS3's early hardware was to work with.
To thank you for your compliment.
What compliment?
My shoes.
Metal Gear Rising saved. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Originally, Metal Gear Rising was a spin-off from Kojima Productions titled Metal Gear Solid Rising. Rather than taking place after Metal Gear Solid 4, the game was meant to bridge the gap between MGS2 and MGS4, focusing on how Raiden rescued Sonny from the Patriots. Kojima entrusted his team to lead the project, but when he returned months later, he was disappointed with the progress and ultimately cancelled it. Ouch. Fortunately, Platinum Games stepped in to finish the game, leading to a major refocus. That being said, I'd have loved to have seen that idea play out.
Game, only all muscled up and less predictable.
But it makes you wonder, where'd Desperado find these guys?
I'm not complaining. They're like walking vending machines.
9/11 affected MGS2, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. It's fairly common practice that horrific real-world events change films and TV and games that were being created well before these real-world events, to save audiences connecting their work with the real-world events. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty required alterations before its launch for this exact reason. The original ending featured Arsenal gear crashing into Manhattan and destroying several buildings, with the final battle between Raiden and Solidus ending with Raiden draping the American flag over Solidus's body. The 9/11 attacks felt a little bit too similar, and it was ultimately cut. The Fear was one of Raiden's OG designs, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty.
I don't smoke. Keep it anyway. May come in handy.
In many ways, Raiden's design is a brilliant choice, as it adds another layer of discomfort to Metal Gear Solid 2, further unsettling the player. In another way, f*** Raiden. Regardless of how you feel about whiny Raiden, his design wasn't always what we ended up seeing. Early concept art for Sons of Liberty reveals that Snake Eater's The Fear was considered as one of Raiden's preliminary designs. Yes, the most erratic and disturbed member of the Cobras was almost the protagonist of Metal Gear Solid 2. Imagine that. Ugh.
Soon a most exquisite pain will engulf your entire body. Your limbs will be paralyzed, your lungs cease to draw breath. Eventually, your heart will stop beating. But what fun with that?
Kojima strikes again, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots.
I am an octopus. An 8-legged beast.
MGS4 introduced the Beauty and the Beast unit as its group of antagonists. Dressed in black and grey armor, the B&B Corps consists of 4 women, each suffering from PTSD. And after beating them, the women shed their armor to reveal their beauty, slowly advancing towards Snake in nothing but skin-tight suits covered in slime. The design is already unnecessarily erotic, which is even harder to digest when they're clearly having mental breakdowns, but Kojima initially intended to push this sexuality further by having the beauties approach Snake completely nude. Come on, Hideo, you naughty boy. Skateboarding minigame, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. In addition to new VR missions and an alternate non-canon story mode where Solid Snake replaces Raiden on the plant, MGS2 Substance included a Tony Hawk-style skateboarding mode. Players could choose either Snake or Raiden to skate around Big Shell, performing tricks and destroying ciphers. I know what you're thinking. Matt, that sounds totally bodacious, and you're right. What is even going on in this game? Snake's Dream, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. In MGS3, after suffering through the torture sequence, the player will end up in a small jail cell. If the player saves, quits, and reloads the game immediately, they're treated to a bloody hack-and-slash minigame called Guy Savage. The inclusion of this strange minigame remained a mystery for years, with Kojima refusing to comment on it, until he revealed it was a preview for a cancelled Konami title. The minigame is exclusive to the PS2 version, and it's such a crazy weird inclusion that many players still don't know it exists. Raiden's reveal was protected Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. I've drilled this point into the ground, but when Metal Gear Solid 2 debuted in 2001, there was little reason to suspect Snake would be replaced. Raiden made brief appearances in TV spots and trailers, but the focus was always on Solid Snake. He was the one players controlled in all of the scenes, and the star of every showcased cutscene. On top of this, Kojima had shown footage of the plant section with Snake's model swapped out for Raiden's. It's a sneaky move, and it really rubbed people the wrong way.
Nothing here.
Snake and Otacon were supposed to die. Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots. At the end of MGS4, and in the longest sequence of cutscenes in history, Snake decides to live out his remaining months in peace. It's an unexpected and beautiful conclusion to Solid Snake's story. However, Kojima originally envisioned a much darker ending, with Snake and Otacon surrendering themselves to the UN for their role in Metal Gear terrorism and being sentenced to execution. Kojima's team found this conclusion too bleak and reportedly refused to continue working unless he revised it. Imagine that, someone telling Kojima this is a bit much. Well done, team. I wish someone had stood up to him when it came to Princess Beach in Death Stranding. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.